everybody, welcome to Country Girl. Today I am making a strawberry pretzel dessert. Yesterday was my mother's birthday, and today we're actually going to celebrate it. Everybody's going to go out and eat, and then afterwards we're going back to her house to have some dessert and coffee. And this is one of her favorite desserts, so I'm going to make that for her. And I thought, well, you know what? This will just give me another opportunity to record a recipe for you. And if I'm not mistaken, I think a while back somebody had actually asked me to do this recipe anyway. So I'm going to do that today, and I hope you enjoy watching. Okay, so the ingredients you're going to need to make this, it's not very much at all. You're going to need a bag of pretzels. I think the pretzel twist actually works better as far as breaking them up, but any kind of pretzels will do. You need a container of Cool Whip, a package of cream cheese, some butter, either a 6-ounce pack of strawberry jello or 2 3-ounce packages, and then 1 container of fresh strawberries, or I think it would call for a 10-ounce pack of frozen strawberries. Okay, so the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and put my strawberry jello together according to the package instructions. And this is probably the first thing that you want to do, because once you get this made and you stir in your strawberries, you need to put it in the refrigerator and let it congel till it's just about almost done. So that way, while that's in the refrigerator getting hardening up or stiffening up, you can be working on doing the rest of the steps to your recipe. So I'm just going to make the jello according to the package instructions, and then I'm probably going to go ahead and cut up my strawberries and crush up my pretzels, just so that I have everything prepped and ready to go. Okay, so I am fixing 2 packages of this strawberry jello, and it calls for 1 cup of boiling water for each package. So I'm going to pour in 2 cups of boiling water. And I'm pouring this in first before I put my jello, because if you put your jello in first and then pour your hot water, your jello is going to stick to the sides and the bottom of your bowl, and it's just going to be harder to do. So as you pour this, you do want to go ahead and start stirring so that it don't stick. Stir this. Open up my other pack and get that in there real quickly, because this stuff is cooling fast. Now the recipe says that you're to go ahead and add your strawberries here, but I am not going to do that because this is hot. Even after you add the cold water, it's still not going to be completely cold. And I just feel like that, putting fresh strawberries into this warm mixture will kind of wilt the strawberries. If you're using frozen strawberries, it probably won't be an issue. But another thing too, your strawberries are going to kind of settle to the bottom. They're not going to float. So I like to have my strawberries kind of like in the mixture. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put it in the refrigerator, and I'm going to let it thicken up just a little bit and get a little bit cooler. And then I'm going to put my strawberries in it, get them good and mixed in there, and then leave it, until it starts to get almost done. So after all of your strawberry powder mix has dissolved into the hot water, you can add 2 cups of your cold water. Get that mixed in real good. I'm going to put a lid on this, and then I'm going to put this in my refrigerator, probably for about 30 minutes to an hour, just depending on how long it takes. Then I'm going to add my strawberries, mix them in, and put it back in the refrigerator for the remainder of the time. Okay, so while my Jell-O is setting in the refrigerator, I'm going to go ahead and start on my crust. I preheat the oven to 350, and I've got some butter melting on the stove. And when I showed you the ingredients, it actually calls for a stick and a half of butter, and I only have a stick on the counter. So just so you know, you're going to need a stick and a half of melted butter. So I'm going to go ahead, I put my pretzels in a zip bag so that I can get them nice and crushed up. And it calls for 2.5 cups of crushed pretzels. So I'm going to get those crushed and measured up and then get them mixed up with my butter and brown sugar. Okay, I actually think I have closer to 3 cups of pretzels, but you know, it's okay. Your goal is to cover the bottom of your 9 by 13 casserole dish. But you can crush up your pretzels however fine you want them. I kind of like mine about this size just because I think that I like my crust to be a little crunchy. But you can make these really fine if you want to. You just want to make sure that you're crushing up enough that it's going to cover the bottom of your 9 by 13 casserole dish. So now I'm going to take my butter and my brown sugar and I'm going to pour it over this and get that nice and mixed up to put in my, and layer that on the bottom of my casserole dish, pop that in the oven for about 10 minutes to get that butter and brown sugar nice and crystallized around the pretzels. And then I'll be ready to mix up my cream cheese and Cool Whip. I just took the pretzel mixture out of the oven, and you do want to get it out and set it on a cooling rack and let this completely cool so that when you put your cream cheese spread over it, it's not like melting all around the pretzels. And plus, as it cools, it's going to crystallize and harden as well. Okay, so while I'm waiting for my crust to cool, I'm going to put my 8 ounce of cream cheese. I got it in this bowl, and I'm just going to add a cup of sugar. And I'm going to mix that really well. If you have any kind of beater or blender, or not blender, but mixer or something, it would probably be easier for you to cream this with the sugar, but I don't feel like getting mine out and messing everything up just to have to wash it, so I'm going to do this with a fork. So I'm just going to mix this up really well. Alright, it actually wasn't that hard at all to get this mixed up by hand, so I would just say I wouldn't even bother pulling out my mixer. So now I'm going to add the 8 ounces of Cool Whip or whip topping to this, and you're going to want to kind of like use a spoon or a spatula or something and just kind of like fold that in. I'm telling you what, that crust is smelling too good. And just remember, your cream cheese does need to be room temperature. Now, I kept the Cool Whip in my refrigerator until I got ready to use it. This dessert is, I mean, it's so simple, but it is just so tasty. Oh my gosh, it's addictive. I'm glad that I'm sharing this with people, because if I was making this just for us, I would be like, oh my, I would be eating half of this just myself. It is so good, and it doesn't hurt that it's strawberry season now. Now, the recipe tells you after you get this mixed up and combined to go ahead and, of course, smooth it over top of your cooled crust, which I'm going to do. But it tells you on the recipe at that point just to go ahead and pour your Jell-O mixture over top of it and then refrigerate it. But I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this over top of my crust, and then I'm going to put it in the refrigerator and let it cool for a little bit, because as even though this mixture is like nice and creamy and smooth right now, because it has got cream cheese in it, it is going to harden a little bit. Recipes don't tell you everything. It just tells you kind of like the main steps. And I had to make this recipe and screw it up a couple times before I realized what I needed to do. When you pour your Jell-O mixture over top of your crust and your cream cheese layer, if you are not careful and you don't seal the edges, then your Jell-O could actually run down into your pretzels. If that happens, you're going to end up with a soggy crust, and your dessert pretty much to me is going to be ruined. That's why I'm going to take this step, and I'm actually going to put it in the refrigerator and let the cream cheese harden over top of my crust just a little bit prior to adding my Jell-O, because I think it just kind of like double strengthens it, and it's just another safety precaution to keep your juice from your Jell-O or anything like that running down into your pretzel crust. So you really want to make sure this mixture is very well blended. This has the consistency to me of, it makes me think of the marshmallow cream that you could buy in a jar. And so that's what you want it to look like. And you just want to make sure all of it's nice and blended in, but that's what we're going to put over top of that crust. Okay, so my crust is cooled, and I'm going to go ahead and put my mixture on top of that. This is really thick, so I'm just going to have to like put it in like little gobs and then just smooth it out after I get it all put on here. Want to make sure you cover your whole entire crust. Now your crust should not move around because the butter and everything should have already crystallized by this point. So you just want to smooth it over top and just make sure that your mixture, your cream cheese mixture, you want to push it all the way to the sides to kind of seal the edges as best you can. And I checked my Jell-O a little while ago, and it still is like far from being to a point where I can add my strawberries. But because of the time that I have to do this, I'm going to go ahead and add my strawberries after I finish putting this layer on. Either way, the mixture's cool enough to where it's not going to wilt my strawberries, so I don't think it's going to be a problem. I wish I could offer all of y'all a taste of this, but you're just going to have to make one of these so that you can see how delicious it actually is. There it is. I'm going to put some saran wrap over this, stick it in the refrigerator for a little while, go ahead and put my strawberries into the Jell-O, let that finish hardening up, and maybe by the time we're ready to leave, I'll be able to layer this up, so we'll see. I had to end up leaving this in the refrigerator and going to eat and then coming back to finish this off because there just wasn't enough time and we were supposed to be at the restaurant. So my Jell-O is pretty much done, which is okay for the topping. The only thing is that if you had a little bit of liquid to it, it would just make it more smooth and flat across the top. But I did not get to do that because, like I said, it wasn't done in time for me to have it when we left. And so I had to just go ahead and go eat. And now that I'm back, it's completely finished. But anyway, like I said, it's okay. So I'm just going to scoop this out over the top. It's still going to taste just as delicious. It just won't have that little smooth look to it that you can see in the picture. And I am going to post this recipe down below so that you can have that to go by. And when I was cutting up my strawberries, I did cut those up a little bit small just because I wanted to be able to have a strawberry in pretty much every bite. So I used one container, maybe a little bit more. I had some left over from another container, and I just cut those up some small pieces. So other than the little mess I've got right here, which I'll clean up, this is what my dessert looks like on the top. Like I said, if I would have come back a little bit sooner before it got completely congealed, all of this surface would have been smooth. So that's the only difference. You know, the taste is still the same, and then you can see on the side how it looks. And so anyway, I hope you enjoyed this recipe, and thank you so much for watching. Happy birthday, dear Mama. Happy birthday to you. Light the candles.
No, it's not your birthday.
To see you.
You don't leave it.